All right, so get ready because we're diving into something pretty unique today.
Okay.
A piece of art called Blue Skull.
Blue Skull.
Yeah, it's a lithograph, part of a series, and we've got some interesting sources to unpack for this one.
Oh,
An academic excerpt about the piece itself,
okay.
and a YouTube meditation that goes way deeper than you might expect.
Oh, wow.
So strap in, because we're not just talking art appreciation here.
Right.
This deep dive is going to take us from art analysis all the way to Zen philosophy,
Okay.
and even the I Ching.
It's amazing how something as seemingly simple as a skull can become a gateway to all these different ideas and philosophies.
Totally, and the academic excerpt really sets the scene.
Okay.
It describes Blue Skull as stark
Mhm.
and monochromatic with this rough texture that makes you think of decay.
Yeah.
It's like a spotlight on mortality, right?
Absolutely. The piece seems to be playing with this idea of memento mori, this ancient concept of using death as a reminder to really live.
Oh, interesting.
We see it all over our history, not in a morbid way, but as a way to spark reflection.
And the excerpt also mentions these mysterious symbols scattered around the skull,
Mm.
adding to the whole enigma.
Huh?
It even suggests that the lithograph is sometimes used in Zen practices almost like a visual koan to help people find their spirit guide.
That's where the connection to memento mori gets really interesting.
Yeah.
It's not just about contemplating death, but about using that awareness
Yeah.
to fuel how you live your life.
So are we saying the artist intentionally incorporated this memento mori idea? Or could that just be our interpretation?
It's hard to say for sure without asking the artist directly,
True.
but the academic excerpt does point out some interesting art historical connections,
Okay.
like Goya's dark etchings and Odeon Redon's creepy illustrations.
Interesting.
They all use these stark images of death to provoke thought and introspection.
Okay, so we've got these art historical echoes, this Zen practice connection, and then we jump into the YouTube meditation, which brings in even more layers. It talks about the skull, especially in this context, as representing mujo,
Right.
the concept of impermanence in Zen Buddhism.
And mujo is a core concept in Zen.
Right.
It's about recognizing that everything is constantly in flux.
Okay.
Nothing stays the same.
Yeah.
And clinging to the idea of permanence is ultimately an illusion.
So it's like this artwork is a visual reminder to let go of those attachments.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that confronting death in this way, symbolically through the artwork,
Yeah.
can be a path to freedom.
Freedom from what? Like you said?
Freedom from the illusion of a permanent self.
Okay.
That's where shunyata comes in,
Okay.
which means emptiness. It's not about nihilism,
Right.
but about recognizing that things are constantly changing,
Right.
and that's okay.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these concepts connect.
Yeah.
We're moving from the physical representation of the skull to these deeper philosophical ideas about impermanence and emptiness.
And it's not just about thinking about these things abstractly.
Mm-hmm.
The YouTube meditation directly asks how awareness of mortality influences your daily life.
Yeah.
It's about making that connection between the art, the philosophy, and your own experience.
So how does Blue Skull invite us to actually apply these concepts? What
Right.
does that look like in practice?
Well, the YouTube meditation doesn't stop at describing mujo and shunyata.
Right.
This is where things get really interesting. It connects the artwork to the I Ching, this ancient Chinese text. Specifically, it brings up hexagram 18 called Work on What Has Been Spoiled.
Work on what has been spoiled.
Yeah, and it's about recognizing decay and stagnation and then taking action to renew things.
So we're not just supposed to passively contemplate death and impermanence.
Right.
There's an active component here, a call to action.
Exactly. It's like the artwork with all its cryptic symbols is saying, hey, look, things decay. That's a natural part of life, but you also have the power to renew, to transform.
I'm starting to see those symbols less as spooky and more like a roadmap guiding us on this journey of transformation.
That's a great way to think about it. The sources don't specifically explain what the symbols mean,
Right.
but they definitely suggest that there's hidden knowledge there, wisdom about this cyclical nature of life and death, decay and renewal.
It's like the Blue Skull is inviting us to unravel those secrets, to find our own meaning in those symbols.
And to connect those meanings back to our own lives.
Uh,
The YouTube meditation asks some really powerful questions, like
Yeah.
how does awareness of mortality influence your daily life? And what aspects of your life have been neglected or allowed to decay?
Those are some heavy-hitting questions.
Sure.
Like the Blue Skull is holding up a mirror and saying, okay, now what are you going to do about it?
Right. It's not enough to just think about these things intellectually. The real challenge is to take that awareness of impermanence and use it to fuel positive change in your own life.
So how do we actually do that?
Right.
How do we move from contemplation to action?
Well, the I Ching hexagram offers some guidance. Work on what has been spoiled. Implies a process of clearing away the stagnant, to make space for something new.
So it's about identifying those areas of our lives where things have gotten stale or neglected, and then taking steps to revitalize them.
Precisely. It could be a relationship that needs attention, a creative project that's been gathering dust, or even a negative thought pattern that's holding you back. The blue skull reminds us that we have the power to choose what we focus on, what we cultivate, and what we let go of.
This is really resonating with me. It's like the artwork, even though it depicts a skull, is ultimately a symbol of hope. It's a reminder that even in decay, there's the potential for renewal.
Absolutely, and that potential is always present, waiting for us to tap into it.
It's like the blue skull is saying, don't be afraid of the darkness of the impermanence. Embrace it, learn from it, and use it as fuel for growth.
That's a powerful message, and one that I think we can all benefit from.
This whole deep dive has been such an unexpected journey. We started with an art analysis and somehow ended up exploring the depths of Zen philosophy and the I Ching.
And we've just scratched the surface. There's so much more to unpack here, so much wisdom to be gleaned from these sources.
And the coolest part is that these insights are all accessible to anyone willing to engage with them. You don't need a degree in art history or philosophy to find meaning in Blue Skull.
Exactly. It's about opening yourself up to the experience, allowing the artwork and the ideas it evokes to speak to you on a personal level.
So for someone encountering Blue Skull for the first time, what advice would you give them? How can they get the most out of this experience?
I would say approach it with a sense of curiosity and wonder. Don't get hung up on trying to interpret everything perfectly. Just let the image wash over you and see what thoughts and feelings arise.
Let yourself be surprised by what you discover.
Exactly. Ask yourself, what does this skull represent to you? What does it make you think about your own life, your own mortality, your own potential for transformation?
Those are great questions, and I think the answers will be different for everyone. That's what makes Blue Skull so fascinating. It's a deeply personal experience disguised as a piece of art.
And it's an invitation to explore the depths of our own being, to confront our fears, and to embrace the possibility of renewal. It's a reminder that even in the face of death, life finds a way.
Wow. It's amazing how much we unpacked from just this one piece of art.
I know, right?
It's like Blue Skull is this little portal to some really big questions, about life and death and everything in between.
Yeah, it really highlights how art can be so much more than just something pretty to look at.
Right.
It can be a catalyst for deep thought and a personal transformation.
Totally. So to wrap things up, we journeyed from art analysis to Zen philosophy to the I Ching, all thanks to this lithograph called Blue Skull.
And I'll leave you with this. Now that you've explored Blue Skull and its symbolism, think about looking for other memento mori in art and in your daily life. How do they make you think about your own life, your values, and what you choose to focus on?
That's a great point, something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a fascinating one.
Absolutely my pleasure.